my god! Oh, this volcano vape has completely changed my life. Now when I'm painting little Warhammer figures, I'm gonna have to desperately fight off the urge to paint them all Rastafarian themed. And I'm pretty sure Warhammer doesn't have a bumclot edition, so you know what? I'm gonna set all that stuff aside. Let's actually just talk about the one thing that bothered me today: censorship.
Lois, you a show full of what? No, I can't say in my own house? Great, Lois. Just great. You know, you're lucky you're good at my or I'd never put up with you.
And specifically, censorship from Sony. The worst type of censorship. When it comes to censoring games, nobody can get on dear old PlayStation's level. Even Nintendo allows for more lewd art than Sony does. See, people oftentimes want to give Sony credit when they see, you know, Tifa's impressive chest in Final Fantasy or Eve's very, very, very impressive figure in Stellar Blade, but people are quick to forget that's not first party. Sony themselves do not like this. None of PlayStation's women have exactly been attractive for well over a decade now. Maybe even longer. No, when it comes to Sony themselves, they hate attractive women. They don't want you to see them unclothed unless it's dear old Abby in that very traumatic scene from The Last of Us 2. Sony is selective. They treat their Western audience like they're children, sometimes even going a step above and censoring things like drugs and alcohol. Developers feeling pressure to change the name of things like cigarettes, which makes no sense because oftentimes what Sony is censoring are games intended for a mature audience. Yeah, obviously it's silly to say that this is a Sony problem only, but seeing as how they are the biggest platform, it's not surprising they have the most censorship. So when everybody was looking forward to Stellar Blade, obviously because of the gameplay and the story, duh, that's why everybody's buying that game, it should come as no surprise dear old Sony took liberties with what they wanted Shift Up to tone down. Stellar Blade developer Shift Up acknowledges the outfit censorship. More players provide video evidence of changes. Okay, can we just talk about how awful this censorship is? It's not even solely about the fact that she's less sexy in this outfit. It's just the outfit itself is a massive downgrade too. What is this ugly ass piece of cloth? The color is hideous, the fabric looks awful, and they significantly toned back any cleavage exposure. I mean, from a fashion sense, this just looks terrible. Why? You can tell this must have been a last-minute decision being enforced by higher-ups, because these outfits are completely last-minute. They look goofy. Went from sexy black to ugly yellow/brown diarrhea looking colors. This was all thanks to that day one patch that completely misled thousands of consumers from thinking they were going to get an unapologetically uncensored sexy ass game.
All you know about is looking sexy in your goddamn uniforms.
Jim, calm down.
I mean, this is a lesson for everyone. Never think the one game you're going to play is the chosen one, because that's what a lot of folks thought online. They really thought this game was going to be the chosen one. It's like nobody can learn their lesson. Big companies, they don't want you to have fun. They just want you to pay. If they see that you're enjoying this, fully expect them to pull the rug from under your feet. It is Sony after all. The Last of Us 2 is a prime example of where this company is at right now. And if that isn't obvious enough for you, then you must be a PlayStation fanboy, because there's no other way around it. Frit, you need to calm down. You have no proof that any of this is the results of censorship. If the developers wanted to make the decision on their own, you cannot call that censorship.
Go outside, nerd. Get out. Go. I ain't got time to be distracted by your worthless chime-ins. Go on.
Well, how about we point to how Sony asked Shift Up to change the infamous hard R graffiti that was on the wall because it offended white people who get offended on the behalf of black people who never asked them to. When that happened, I knew more changes are going to happen, aren't they? The reason I didn't make a video on that right away is because I said, let's wait for the game to release, because I have a feeling there's going to be changes other than the ones for the graffiti. The squad whose job it is to be offended at everything has way more pull and say in the industry than you think. The fact that thousands of people on Twitter who were offended at graffiti on a wall because they can't help but project their own insecurities onto everything else were able to get the game changed is not good. The terminally offended have way too much influence. And the worst part is, oftentimes they're bending the knee to a crowd who's never even going to buy the game in the first place or support it in any sort of way. So, I mean, yeah, it does bother me, and yes, I do get irritated when Shift Up promises every single copy of their game is going to be uncensored, only for the censorship to hit day one. To see that developers' confidence shattered within 48 hours of making the statement is absolutely insane.
그 검열 버전으로 다시 할 수 있는 방법을 생각하고 계신지 아니면 이런 이슈를 혹시 지금 알고 계신지는 한번 좀 물어보고 싶었습니다.
예, 당연하게도 이 이슈에 대해서 인지를 하고 있습니다. 다만 이제 저희가 최종적으로 여러분들께 보여드리고자 하는 것은 1.0002 버전의 의상이 맞습니다. 그래서 그게 최종 프로덕트라는 것을 확실히 말씀드리고 싶고요. 다만 이제 이것이 어쨌든 유저 여러분들을 완전히 납득시켜드릴 수 있는 답변은 아니기 때문에 지금 현재 그것에 대해서 내부에서 논의 중입니다. 그래서 조만간 한번 그 부분에 대해서 말씀드릴 수 있는 기회가 있을 거라고 생각합니다.
조금만 기다려주시면 감사하겠습니다.
It just doesn't seem like the decision came from the studio themselves. And if you're okay with big companies doing this because you're so personally offended that people drool over Eve because you're insecure about that, but don't worry, good old Sony will always be there to have your back. Or censor the back, as I should say. It always seems to be the games that lefties take a problem with that face such censorship, if you ever notice. I mean, it's way too much of a coincidence at this point, but I'll leave it up to you. If you want to know what I think it is, it's an appeal to triviality, a logical fallacy where someone involved in an argument says the issue being argued over doesn't matter, in an attempt to shame their opponents into giving up so that their side can push their agenda unopposed. I mean, but if you want to oppose it, a petition was made so that you could go sign it and see if it makes any difference, which I doubt. This change was made to spite audiences. This was a very spiteful change made by the higher-ups at Sony, so don't expect them to be so easily swayed by thousands of signatures. I know what some of you are thinking. Frit, there's nothing wrong with it. She's still got plenty of skin to go around. The changes are so minor and they're only done towards her outfits, so we know the problem is you. Right, that's what they all say, and until you show them that they've also completely censored the gore for the game. Eve no longer comes out dripping with blood. I'm saying what you will about the sex appeal of the game. You cannot argue this form of censorship for a mature rated game is appropriate. It's stupid. And I'm tired of being gaslit into thinking the issue at hand isn't a big deal. No, it's not a big deal to you because you have a conformist attitude. Subtle changes add up over time. I shouldn't have to explain this to people. One minute they start with a little tiny thing. The next, they're completely toning down entire women's figures. And for a game like Stellar Blade to have any form of censorship goes against what the game was promoted as. You cannot fault people for being upset about it. And yes, as you could imagine, it's the usual suspects coming to defend this. You know which ones I'm talking about. Blue, pink and white flags or rainbow flag folks. The fact that the newest Stellar Blade talking point is that the usual crowd thinks removing the main character's camel toe is censorship should really tell you what their fixation has always been about. Wow. Wow, absolutely shameless gaslighting. Just read that. Thinks is censorship? What do you mean thinks? That is blatant censorship, you fucking dumbass. Now we're being gaslit into thinking the definition of censorship has always been different and we were wrong. That's all this crowd knows how to do. Shame, point the finger, and never actually play the games. If all these corporations actually focused solely on making content for this audience, they would all go broke within a year. I'm sorry, but this crowd does not have the argument. Sorry, there really is no defense for censoring out graffiti, gore, or any of Eve's outfits. It's a mature-rated game. My adult eyes will be fine. The only adult eyes that won't is from your crowd, because the very figure, the very image of a woman with the beauty standards that attract the male gaze really makes you insecure. I get it. But likewise, you're the same crowd that will cry when people make a mod to censor out LGBT flags. So much so, you get Nexus gamers to remove said mods. Or how about when Insomniac had to censor the game for audiences outside of America? You guys took an issue with it, and you weren't arguing that it was trivial then, so fuck off. And let's also bring up the fact that, as expected, Blackrock has a share of Sony. Somewhere out there, a wild Larry Fink saw a booty and didn't like it. Now, of course, things aren't that simple. But all I do know is basically anyone who takes money from Blackrock, anyone who allows Blackrock to own a percentage of their company, 9 out of 10 times seems to push for things like this. It very well could just be one giant coincidence propagated by trillions of dollars. Wow, what a coincidence if you follow the paper trail. Just so head-scratching, isn't it, huh? I mean, I really don't know how you could say a giant mega corporation with trillions in assets and they share in almost every major company in the world is a conspiracy theory. But if that's the hill they want to die on, if defending censorship only if it hurts the side you're against, go ahead. But the next time anything LGBT gets censored for audiences outside of America, I don't want to see no bitching and I don't want to see no crying, because by your standards, that's trivial. It doesn't hurt the game. It doesn't change the quality of the games. And yet you will get so hung up on it. We're supposed to believe Eve's censorship is trivial and such a non-issue, yet I lost track of the countless articles written about how inappropriate and demeaning and sexist it is. These folks are not your friends. Most of them don't really even care about video games that much. They have more colors in their flag than games they beat in their entire life. I know we shouldn't take them serious, but they're the only voice that basically 9 out of 10 times sides with the corporations that make these changes because they enjoy seeing it upset the crowd that they are against. Because they're entirely fueled by hatred, jealousy, envy, and insecurity. The fact any single group out there is arguing that it's not a big deal and shouldn't be put into question is insane to me. There is zero reason to be censoring adult games. And I mean, I don't know, I guess if you agree with me, then like, comment, share, and subscribe if you so choose to. I'm gonna go back to painting little toys. That being said, see you in the next one.
Free Congo sucks ass.